Can you
Can
hear
you hear
me?
me?
Yeah,
We did it.
we did it. Yay. Two
I'm
non-technology girls.
fuck a duck, right? Like, don't even. And I mean, just the whole day of it all. This
Oh no. Oh
current
God.
Ides of March is already kicking my ass. Oh my
The what?
God.
The what of March?
Ides of March, IDES. It's like
Yeah.
a Roman, the madness of March. But
Ah,
this particular astrological setup is
yes.
like, you know,
Yeah.
we make it through. I think we make it through anything. But of course, it started early for me because I have to be
Yes.
special kids and you don't have a kid.
So
Anyway,
yeah.
let's talk
Yeah, it is.
foraging.
Yeah.
All right. So, welcome, Miss Chanterelle Foggin,
Thank
who
you.
is the Forager's plate.
Thank you so much for having me, the sacred door bitch.
You're the one who knows
I was thinking
the
about
younger
that
generation.
title. And I was thinking like mushrooms are almost like the sacred door bitch as well, aren't they? Like
Is it right? So, shall we just go there straight off the bat? I was going
why
to start
not?
with foraging. How did you get
Well,
in there?
it's
Your
all
favorite
part of
plant?
it.
Let's do shrooms, baby. Let's just go straight up. So,
Well, yeah, why not?
why not indeed?
So yeah, I mean, my fascination started with mushrooms probably around about 8, 9 years ago now. And I was super lucky to be in a state of grace where my life was going through a lot of changes, and I was really held in a sacred space in a women's circle that was really beautiful at that time. And a lot of the elder sort of women, or as I saw them as wise or elder women, in that group were sort of quite pro about maybe experimenting with mushrooms and seeing what that could offer me in terms of my healing from childhood trauma and the things that I was processing that I couldn't seem to get out of me through years of cognitive behavioral therapy and going and seeing everybody that you can, every healer,
Yeah,
everything like
yeah.
that. And so I was really lucky to have this beautiful relationship where I went out with these women and sort of got to know what I was looking for and how to identify these mushrooms and how to use them for my own healing. And that sparked something inside of me. It was like almost like the little mycelial fibers started to grow, and I became absolutely just totally enamored and fascinated with all mushrooms. And then being a sort of a cook person like yourself, I'm like, what can I do to eat these wild foods? How can I learn about which mushrooms I can use in a gourmet way? And so it kind of spread out from the healing into the gourmet edible side, and then a lot of looking for edible mushrooms is knowing about what forest you're in and what trees are there and what trees have the associations with the mushrooms that you're looking for. So I started to get more and more interested and involved with plants as well through that, because it was what the mushrooms asked me to do. It was the next step. And mushrooms are there, they aren't a plant, they aren't an animal, they are their own
Yeah,
kingdom of organisms.
absolutely.
And I mean, yeah, they have more in common with shellfish than you might imagine, and more in common
Really?
with giraffes than than us in
I never thought of
particular.
it like that.
Yeah, so
Wow.
they're a strange and unusual creature, and I suppose that's where a lot of the fascination came from too. And then yeah, so we have a wonderful mushroom season in Australia, which starts sort of in beginning of summer and goes through to our autumn, if you will, because I know in our Bundjalung country we don't have a strong autumn, but when you get attuned to the seasons, you really do notice the changes. And so when that season ended, there was, I wanted to still forage because that connection it brought me and the healing, I still I was, wanting that. And so I started to learn more about edible weeds, about introduced naturalized species that have, been spread by birds and whatnot, about bush tucker and what else could I be connected to the land with when I couldn't forage for mushrooms as well.
Yeah. Wow. Because I'm always worried, like, I'll pick the wrong one. Or even with a weed, like, what the fuck am I going to eat and vomit? I'm sort of, I've never met definitive. And so I'm so excited that you're coming here to Casaveras,
Yes,
people.
yes. So we're doing.
So, yes, yes. Well, it's because as I said, I've got no fucking, I mean, I've got no idea whatsoever what to eat. And not only do you pick and eat, but the preparations, the way you use, and like, I mean, the soda, all that stuff, like
Thank
you could
you.
go to Chanterelle, Woolies, not the Woolies.
Yeah, and it's something really awesome about sort of usurping that chain of, breaking that cycle of that you can only get food from places like Woolies or whatever, that's another really cool
Yeah.
thing about it. But super excited to be coming down in Myocum to your place on the 30th of March. We're doing a forage event. So, and it's geared towards people starting off in their foraging journey like yourself. So we'll cover a lot about, knowing about the toxic plants that are commonly around, and how to ID those, and getting to know species by species. So starting with simple things like a couple of edible weeds that you've seen, you've been taught by someone else, and it's really kind of a person to person learning, and that's why it's great to get a small group together, and we'll go for a walk around and we'll actually handle plants and really actually start connecting with them, and that's the way to go. And it's the same with the mushrooms, but it's like the thing is, there's a lot of what we call mycophobia in Australia, where we've been grown up where it's like, don't touch that, um,
Yeah.
stay away, and all of this sort of thing. And it's it's interesting for parents and people to know that there isn't a mushroom or a fungus that you can touch in Australia that can harm you. You have to
Huh?
eat and digest even the most toxic, if we're talking about a death cap mushroom, you have to ingest that for it to have any of its effects upon you. So children touching, necessarily if they've touched a mushroom or picked one up or handled it, there's no need for cause for concern in that instance. Of course, we need to be cautious with children and mushrooms and all of that sort of thing. But it's just reassuring for people to know that. But yes,
I had no
again,
idea.
yeah. So again, like, people have there's a few sort of rhymes that go around, like old wives' tales, like, white gills equal hospital bills and things like that. And
Oh, wow.
they're not actually necessarily true. Some of the
Oh,
best edible mushrooms have white gills. I've got a little one. He's looking a little bit sad here right now, but this is a little
all right.
Oudsmanzilla exenulata that I found yesterday. It's a white gilled mushroom and it's a beautiful edible mushroom. I've eaten this one quite a few times. So it's there's sort of these old wives' tales and this inbuilt fear of mushrooms that people have, when in fact, it's plants are actually more, can be more dangerous. I mean, there's several plants in our area, like the stinging tree, that you only have to brush up against, and you're in all sorts of pain for quite some, can be weeks to months even. There's no
See, I
mushroom
hope we
that
don't
can
have
do
any of
that.
those here.
I
I
didn't
mean,
see
let me
any,
know,
but
right?
they're
Oh,
super
good.
common. That's one of the plants we'll go through the common plants to avoid and to look out for when you're out foraging, when we have the workshop as well. And that's sort of, we also cover the foraging sort of ethics side, how to do that in a sustainable way, leaving some for the birds and the bees and other foragers. And if you choose to, maybe sharing on food maps, using apps that have food maps. We have a local one called Youth Forage app that people add, roadside trees and things like that, that they're happy to share fruit from, or that they've found and they're like, wow, there's an abundance of elderberry here. I'm never going to be able to have all this, might as well share the
Yeah.
location with other people. So yeah,
Love that.
it builds community, and that's the idea of having a group of people face to face as well, is that we'll get to know each other in a special way, and we'll share some food at the end and things that I've made. And I always sort of say to people that the foragers' work is a lot about preserving and keeping the harvest for later use in the year. So it's trying to find inventive ways to, pickle and jams and do preserves and things like that, sodas and ferments and stuff, so that, you can keep enjoying the spoils throughout the year.
I'm fascinated. It's like, first of all, I mean, when I met you at one of Sharon's tea parties, get on those
Yes.
girls and boys.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I saw your Insta, and I'll put it all up on the screen, and just this is all I, got this week. And it was like a whole shopping list. And
Yeah.
the stuff had so much nutritious value, and it was so attractive. Like, there's no way it was like, sometimes when people talk forage or things like that, you kind of conjure up this troll under the bridge, and you sort of like,
Yeah. No, I
right?
definitely think,
It's
yeah,
not gourmet,
totally.
baby,
There's
right?
part of there's
And
part of me that actually loves being that troll as well. But I get it. It's sort of like, there is that kind of feeling of like, oh, you're picking up rotten apples under a tree, and you're maybe getting subpar food because you're not able to afford to get the premium items. But and they say this with the mushroom hunter, it's like you're sort of a fool to the poor and a fool to the rich. It's sort of always been that way. It's kind of probably that archetype in a way, I suppose, that you're playing into. And I do call myself a seaweed hag. When I'm down at the beach collecting big piles of seaweed and carrying it around, and I feel like I do look kind of trollish and disheveled, and I kind of like that people are scared of me in that way. There is a
the
witchiness to
legend.
there is a witchiness to this work. It's
I love that.
ancestral work, and it really brings you into that power of the of being a human, but also power of the woman, because our eyes are just like attuned to do this work, that we're there for
Right.
seeing these colors, for noticing these patterns. And it's all about pattern recognition, because when you were a child, you didn't know a tomato was an edible tomato until you were told it was a tomato, it was a tomato, it was a tomato, over and over and over again. And so this is the idea about, yeah, if we gather people together and we share this information person to person, which is the way it's always been shared. If we go back into our own hunter-gatherer Anglo-Saxon ancestry, but also honoring, First Nations people and the way that they shared information through storytelling and whatnot, that's gathering a group of people together and actually sharing the stories and sharing the information from person to person has a special power to it as well.
Yeah, transmission, you can't beat it.
Yeah.
I dig the internet, but person to person transmission it's organic. It's the thing that AI can never do.
Yeah,
You
hopefully
know?
that will never be taken from us. And yeah, and I think too, for a beginner forager, it's like taking that leap from seeing someone doing it and being like, oh, I think I saw that on when I drove down the road, down that little side road. I think I saw an elderberry tree or a lemon myrtle, and then having the guts to stop and get out and actually do it. Like, after coming to a workshop, you'll be more empowered to actually be, like recognizing these plants in your own environment. And so yeah, it's a good, it's a gateway for you to get into
Yeah,
it yourself. It's come along, and it's great to just, it's beautiful. We have people come who are more experienced foragers, just to be with like-minded people as well, and and to eat some beautiful wild foods, and yeah,
yeah.
have a chat and a natter and see different place to forage, and what can they, what can they learn.
So
And I
have
was
like
just,
yeah,
sorry, you
like,
go, you go.
like oh, sorry. I'm thinking, do you have a toolkit? Because I'm thinking of myself driving down the road. Oh, there's my lemon myrtle and crack a tree bit. Like, is there special tools or a special way
Oh,
to
well,
do it?
look,
Like, that's part of.
Yeah, I think I do. And like I've got on my website, I've actually got a little bit about putting together a foraging kit for the car and whatnot, but it's all the normal items. I mean, the only thing that you probably see me out with that's unusual is I always have at least one or two knives on me, and you've seen this. So
Oh, yeah. Go hello.
having a little mushroom knife. So this little mushroom
How
one,
cute is that?
yeah, so this one's got a little brush on it for getting the dirt out of your mushrooms, and then
OMG.
your actual little knife for cutting.
Oh,
And so, yeah, I find myself always having at least a couple of knives in the car, a little,
I'll
you
be
know,
wearing that as a fashion accessory. I don't give a fuck
oh,
about cutting anything. It's so
yeah,
cool.
no, but I like
Can we get
actually,
that on your site?
do you know what I actually end up doing? I actually end up cutting things in the kitchen. Because I just love
Oh,
this knife so much. But I
sure.
lost one. I it's
Oh,
also a foragers thing, is like the knives kind of come and go and the foraging equipment kind of comes and goes. The amount of time I've been out foraging and then I've found scissors or I've found a trowel or something that somebody else has left behind in the excitement of gathering their bounty. And it happens to me quite often with my knives. I find an awesome mushroom. I'm super excited and I just put it down and I walk off. And so then someone else gets that. And yeah, that's nice. And sometimes I end up finding, so I have found one knife before, but that one's long gone as well. But yeah, I mean, always having a couple of, bags in the car. I mean, we all do these days. I mean, if you want to be an extra person, having a long handled snippers is always good for reaching things. And a pair of gloves, I always say too, because you just never know what you want to, what's going to appear when you're about. You never know if you're going to come across a pickly pear that you want to take some paddles and some fruit from or anything. So yeah, being prepared
right.
is important, but literally foraging happens everywhere, anytime, and there's many times where I haven't been prepared, and it's one of those ones you
Great.
just end up using whatever's on hand and getting through, getting by.
Okay, so when we come on the March one, March 30th,
Yes.
what do we bring?
I'd say for everybody to bring along, wear enclosed shoes because we'll just walk around the property, a hat, maybe bring, if you want to collect a couple of things, a basket or a bag. There'll be opportunity for us to snip some little edible weeds. We'll probably make something back together when we end up coming back for the end of the walk and our little morning tea. We'll do a demo of making something with some of the things we've collected. But just bring your good selves, and yeah, and just that enthusiasm to learn. And I find that is a no-brainer for the people who end up turning up and joining us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It becomes a bit instinctual. That's what I've noticed is like once you cross that threshold of saying, I can do this. This is
yeah,
like you sort of like a mind meld, if you will, with the flora and fauna.
that's it.
A whole world opens up. It's like a completely different expression or dynamic of relationship. I
Totally.
remember when I was younger, like I went to my grandparents and they had a garden. And I looked at mum and said, but there's a supermarket. Why do they do this? Right. And of course, now in my, wisdom of age, I'm like, fuck. But that was how, as a child, I was being conditioned,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know. Like,
we
luckily, I
are.
got to see them doing that, the homemade, except and got to taste it and everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like life without AI. There was that before sometimes.
And
You know what I
I
mean?
think I think there's a couple of things. It's like I weirdly we can thank kind of like COVID times, because obviously
Mm.
like there was that resurgence for people to get back into their gardens, and also people were wondering like, oh, what will happen if I can't get food from the supermarket and I can't get seedlings from Bunnings? Where would I be able to obtain food from? What things around me would be useful and edible? What resources do I have? And so yeah, I got this very definite feeling from my community at that time that they were going to keep me alive for the apocalypse. But you know
Yeah, I will
um
be. You're a national treasure. What are you talking about? Oh my God.
And so that's a weird thing that we sort of can thank COVID that has, like, there'll be so many more children and generations of people who will have had that chance to be in a garden and do that stuff that may not have happened in busy parents' lives and whatnot. So that's kind of weird. But I also really connect with, the grandparent story, because like when
Mm.
I ask people, and one of the things I love to hear about from people is like your foraging origin story. When did you start
Yeah,
foraging? And most people actually go back to when they were a child, and then and often it's an elder grandmother that was the person, and that's like really
yeah,
gets me in the heart, because I feel like that's just we're still in our bodies doing what we're meant to do when that's happened. And again, that transmission, like you said before. But um yeah, also, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I used to go and pick these flowers and do this and that, and I used to make these little potions, or I used to, all of this sort of stuff. And it getting back towards, like, creating little potions in the kitchen with things you've collected and stuff. It connects you with that childhood joy that you had. And I find that
yeah.
most people have that story, and they may have forgotten a little bit about it. Um, but yeah, getting back into the foraging, yeah, it's such a great for your mental health thing to do. Like, not are you only being active, connecting with nature outside, but you're also connecting with a very deep part of yourself. And yeah,
Yeah,
like we all know, like connections, like the opposite of depression. And that's what it in this whole journey of, years and years of foraging, it's helped me. And when I feel down and when I don't know what to do in my life, I go, and I know I can go out and forage and find things and taste a little midgeonberry or something, and it's just like, that's what it's about for me. That's what life's about. And so I really,
yeah.
yeah, want to be able to connect to other people, and that, because it's a disconnected life that a lot of people do lead these days.
No, right? It's like we're spoiled. When I say we, I'm doing the collective we, but here we're spoiled. And I realize that when I go into different places and
Mm,
things that are a bit built up, and I also understand that life gets busy and you have a lot of intentions and you have a lot, I'm gonna, and suddenly you don't. So that whole COVID thing was finally people had some time. They weren't
yeah,
chasing the mortgage payment, so to speak. Hopefully, the
yeah,
government was giving
exactly.
it to them.
The other thing is
Oops.
too is that, like, there's a real this is a interesting controversial sort of issue in terms of foraging, is that there is a real wall for a lot of people to access land. So, there's a lot of people who privately hold land, and there's a lot of people who will never have the chance in their life to access space and land. And to me, it's a human right. And in other countries, there's a right to roam where, people can access parts of hedgerows and parts of private property, so that you can have this access to this type to do foraging and to wander and to fulfill this type of human need. And,
Do
like,
they get permission or you just wake up and they're out your door? Like, how does it
well,
work?
certain properties have like walkway parts on them, that it's like
Right,
the rail trails. They've gone and said,
right.
right, this is public land. You own this, but this part people can walk through. And it's just quite
Mm,
often the same in New Zealand as well. There's no right to roam in New Zealand, but there's a lot of public access to private property through, paddocks and whatnot. And
right.
and even the things they've done with the rail trail, for example, it's now allowed people access to land. And I'm a big I support that. I got chased out of a paddock last week.
Stop it.
No, the
Really? With a
true
pitchfork?
story. I was lucky. I was only there for gathering some lotus flowers out of a dam, but two very angry men, came up on me, yelling at me and motioning me out of the paddock like I'm a cow. Um, and very, very upset that I was picking a flower from their dam, you know, and it's like, but I don't have anywhere else to do that. And I understand that there's implications for property owners, like, you know, public liability and whatnot. And it's a complicated issue. Um, but there's a certain part of a forager that's kind of a cheekiness about it as well. So we call it
Yeah,
like the unrepentant forager. You know, you see something through a fence and you'll just pop in and out, you know, and
could be the name of your book,
so
The
yeah.
Unrepentant Forager.
Yeah, well,
Anyway.
there's a group on Facebook, Unrepentant Foraging Squad.
Oh,
So
really?
it's
Is
got
that
a
your group? 'Cause it's got
no,
a really
that's a
big.
it's an American group. Like in
Okay.
other countries as well. Like we do have an emerging foraging community and scene in Australia, and through as particularly you know, being pushed through by fine dining and modern Australian cuisine, seeking for new flavors and interesting foods to include, and that brings tastes of wild things to people when they go to restaurants, and then they want to create things or learn more about that as well. And you know, we have quite a few really well-known Indigenous chefs, you know, bringing forward, you know, bush foods and bush tucker into a more spotlighted place these days. So you know, it's people know about it a lot more than they used to, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's getting more of uh the recognition as an art form rather than, the troll under the bridge.
Yeah. But in other countries, there's like much stronger scenes around, particularly around mushroom
Yeah.
foraging. If we, you know, you go to Europe or any Eastern European countries, it's just a given that you go out, you know, and forage mushrooms. That's just, you know, normal. And in America, it's very much like that as well. And so, yeah, but we do have, you know, in Australia as well, probably further south in Victoria, Canberra, South Australia, there is a more established mushroom foraging scene, being that they have, you know, a more
Weather.
dominant, yeah, the weather, but it's also driven by the immigrants like Italian and
Mm.
mostly Italian and like Eastern European immigrant culture that's more dominant down there. They are the ones that have taught their children to go to the pine forest to hunt for mushrooms like they did back home. And they're,
Mm.
you know, they're the ones teaching their children and their children, and sharing, you know, how to pickle saffron milk caps and whatnot and share them with their family. And so that comes back to like brings me to like one of the biggest foraging ethics is sort of like there's no pick shaming around like other people. You might see someone foraging sometime and think, hey, what are you doing? You know, why are you taking that leaf or that flower from that tree? Or why have you got a basket full of mushrooms or a container full of pippies or something like that? And we don't know that may be part of their generational sharing in their family and their, you know, their ancestry. They may be feeding
Yeah.
whole families. So yeah, that's sort of one of the things we kind of talk about around the ethics around foraging, is not judging other people for what they may be foraging, why they may be foraging. You know, you don't know. It could be a free food that you see as rubbish, but to them it could be the most prized and looked forward to food of the whole year.
I mean, that's incredible, isn't it? We're
Yeah.
so chocolate three veg, really. We the colonialism convicts, it was pretty much we came cut and pasted from England and what
Mm.
was, considered there. And this is a whole different ball game, isn't it? I mean, I'm so pathetic. I'm like bug freak. What I mean is you get in amongst it. You're saying wear gloves. Like, have you ever been bitten by shit? And you know what I mean? Like, is
Do
that
you- I'm absolutely actually the same as you, V. Like I'm actually a
really?
little bit scared of bugs and stuff. Like I'm quite a
Oh my God,
girl.
I
I'm a
can't believe
girly
it. You're so
girl. I'm a
innocent.
girly girl. I'm a girly girl.
Well, you look
And
pretty. So yeah, there you go.
and so yeah, but do you know what? Everything out there's more scared of you than you are of it. I've obviously, you know, people there's, you know, we in Australia, you know, need to be snake aware and whatnot. But I don't, I've been, like you said, I'm pretty out there. Like I'm normally in the bush. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't come across many snakes at all. Not many snakes at all. And
Yeah, right.
I personally have like a more of a bug and creepy crawly thing. Like I just don't want them on me. But again, like I've adjusted to it, and it's good because like I used to be scared of leeches, even though they don't actually hurt
Oh,
you. I just the creepy
no, no,
crawly
nah,
factor.
I'm there with you. Nah, it's the yeah, nah.
I've gotten over
No.
that from exposure to leeches. Basically, exposure therapy has gotten me over
Right.
that. So yeah, but I do get it. But mostly everything just wants to get away from you.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Don't
Good to
stay in
know.
one spot too long. Just keep moving is also one
Stop
of
it.
my
I'll be doing a
theories. Is
pirouette.
just like just keep going, just keep moving, and nothing can
So
really
is that
attach
is
to
that
you.
the forager's boogie?
Yeah, that is. A little up here, pick something there, going down, down, down there. Yep. Down, down,
Love it.
down to Mushroom Town.
You paint that, you what do you call it? You trademark that, the forager's funk. I don't know. You know I love illiteracy. Is it
Cute.
alliteration? That's it. Yeah.
Alliteration. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we can get on your website and find all this
Yep.
stuff. I'm going to put links to this.
Yeah.
Do you have
So
like an ongoing thing, you know, where people can join and find stuff monthly or something? Like, how
well,
can they
we
become
have a
part of the
few.
world?
There's a couple of ways people can get engaged online. So hopefully, I'll be doing some more regular workshops. This one I'm doing. It's actually been long awaited. I've been a sort of on a bit of a hiatus while I was sort of up in the mountains for a while. But we have a group called Forage and Grow New South Wales, and it's a really awesome community group, and there's a lot of other people who share workshops for all around New South Wales, not just in the Northern Rivers part, but there's interesting people doing things all over the place. So we have people popping their things on there. The other thing is that comes sort of through being part of a group like that is that you know people are always putting up things they're finding, and so you're becoming more aware of what's in season, what might be around you.
Educational.
Yeah, so even just if you're a sort of a silent participant in the page, it's really quite useful in terms of getting to see what people are saying, what people are finding, and how they're IDing it, and discussions and that sort of thing. If you're really interested, and so there's quite a bit of mushroom ID on the group as well as plants. So we're an interesting group in that we mesh the two together. A lot of our
Yeah.
groups kind of keep the two things separate, but we're just like, give it to us all. We love them. We love it.
Yeah, if it's growing, I want it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and then obviously I have my Foragers Play Instagram, and I try to make it as educational as possible, offer people a little bit of value with learning with my
Oh,
stories
it's
and whatnot, and stuff like
fantastic.
that.
It's a
So,
great page.
yeah. And then I have my blog on
Really.
my website. There's quite a few there. There's, some information about, getting interested in starting your foraging journey, about foraging kit you can put together. There's some recipes and some ideas for things like edible weeds uses, like a pumpkin and edible weed bake that's really nice. It can do it vegan with like toasted pumpkin nuts on top and smoked paprika, or with cheese. Is really good. It was actually one of my mum's recipes because my mum was a forager
Oh,
too. So yeah, I was
in the
lucky to
blood.
grow up. Yeah, I was lucky to grow up in New Zealand, quite connected to the land and to the ocean as well. So yeah, so there's a bit of resource on my website as well, but there's also some other really amazing foragers around Australia, and yeah, you can find out about them on the internet. There's Diego Benito, who's running mushroom walks down near Sydney this year, and we've also got Mindy Woods, who's doing bush foods dinners out at Conscious Ground. There's Auntie Delta K, who does bush food tours at the Byron Lighthouse and Bangalore, Broken Head as well. There's some really stellar people that you can get involved with, and it's not just me out here doing workshops. There's also one of my
Yeah,
mushroom mentors, Martin Martini. He does Belly of the World mushrooms. He's doing
that's such a
walks
cool
every
name,
weekend.
Martin
Yeah,
Martini.
Yeah, so
right?
he's a bit of a star in the mushroom world, and he's been one of my reluctant mentors over the last sort of 5, 6 years. And
Mm.
he's famous for his saying that love is more dangerous than mushrooms. So,
He's a man after my own heart.
so
How so his
yeah,
mushroom tour is edible and I
yeah.
always say it the wrong word, psilocybin, psilocybin,
Um,
psilocybin.
so when someone does a mushroom tour, generally they focus on you know, scientifically getting people acquainted with a mushroom, its anatomy, and just finding what's out there. If there happen to be edible mushrooms, then you'll get some information and lessons on that. But otherwise, yeah, it's all of learning, because it all accumulates towards your learning for finding the edible ones when you're learning about the non-edibles, the poisonous, toxics, that sort of thing. So